do is just to make a few points here. One is that Obama mania was misplaced. The expectations were too extravagant about what he can do for Africa. So that is not news. So what I want to do is actually to explain why these expectations were extravagant. And I'll put 3 points to the table. One, Africa has remained consistently insignificant in U.S. foreign policy. Despite the African Command, despite the war on terror, despite the alleged fascination with natural resources, that hasn't really changed. Secondly, Obama, the mania was misplaced because when it comes to Africa or to foreign policy as a whole in the U.S., Congress actually makes policy, not the president. In fact, if the president makes policy, he has to galvanize bipartisanship. He has to bring Congress on board. That hasn't happened under the Obama administration. In fact, the struggle has been how to get Congress on very basic issues. So there hasn't really been any genuine bipartisanship that Mr. Obama would have used to galvanize anything we are going to call the African agenda, if it was there in the first place. Thirdly, the mania was misplaced because Republican administrations generally have had a better record of leadership on African issues. And you go through the big debates from Somalia in the 1990s, Bush 1. You go into big programs like PEPFAR, I think, that Eric was talking about. These are all creatures of Republican administrations. And I don't want to go into those explanations as to why Republicans have done better on African issues than Democrats. But it has a lot to do with the nature of domestic politics. It has to do with the Democrats not wanting to be too much overextended, and therefore they become too much shy about African issues. By the same token, therefore, Republicans have always seized the moment and provided the leadership where there was no expectations that, in fact, they are going to provide that leadership. So that is the third point as to why the Obama record is what it is. If you combine those 3 points, it leads you to the fourth point, which I want to put to the table. When it comes to a region that is as insignificant as Africa, presidents have always innovated. Foreign policy essentially becomes what I call seizing opportunities, where these opportunities exist. Presidents have severe limits because they have to negotiate with Congress, but presidents have been very creative with dealing with African issues. And this is why I'm arguing that, in fact, part of the problem with Obama is that he hasn't seized any moments because there haven't been any moments to seize. And that is why we have a very normal policy towards Africa. And that is why we have what I'm going to call more continuity than change in Obama's policy towards Africa. Why do I say that there are no real big issues that Obama could lead about? And I think Eric has pointed to some of them. The four main issues around Obama's first term in foreign policy was simply the issues that were put to the table by the Clinton administration in the early 90s. One, integration of Africa into the global economy. Two, governance on democracy in Africa. 3, building African regional institutions, peacekeeping, and so on. And thirdly, the issue about economic growth and so on. So the pillars are there from the 1990s. So when we come to the Obama administration, nothing has really changed much. And therefore, Obama himself, even if he wanted, could not do much because of those very issues. The creativity that we see in Obama is, of course, in Ghana, which Erica has pointed to. Africa needs strong institutions, not strong leaders. That moment in Accra, I think, was a good moment because people actually pointed to that as the beginnings of proactive engagement around democracy and governance issues. But that was only one moment, and it disappeared. The irritant on Obama's foreign policy towards Africa would have been Kenya. When you remember, there was convulsion in Kenya. He was saved from that irritant by Kofi Annan, who galvanized all the Kenyan groups around a functional government of national unity. And what Kofi Annan did was therefore to remove a politically irritant issue on Obama's African agenda. And I'm pointing to that because it's important in my next point, which says Africa was not useful to Obama after the Ghana trip because he would not have wanted to hinge his presidency or his re-election on the uncertainties and the vagaries of African politics. And that is why he was guardedly cautious about how to manage Africa in the first 4 years, because he doesn't want to overextend himself, do a few good things, put them to the table, stay in the background. That's precisely what he did. So you read that, after Ghana, everybody's saying, when is he going to visit Africa again? And my reading is that that is not an important issue. Get Hillary Clinton to go there. And Hillary actually did an excellent job because one of the few Secretary of States to come to Africa quite a lot. But if you read what she came here to do across Africa, was essentially to reiterate AGOA, PEPFAR, African peacekeeping. There was, as I'm arguing, therefore, no real new agenda. So it was therefore very logical for Obama to take a very guarded, non-committal policy towards Africa. What about the second term? Let me alert you, before I get to the second term, I think the most innovative component of the Obama administration in the first 4 years was to send 100 troops to Central Africa to help in fighting the LRA. And I see that more in that kind of bold initiatives. And the reason is because I don't really understand how you'd send 100 troops to go and look after somebody that the Ugandans have failed to do over the last few years. So what about the new term? The second term, I want to point to the inaugural speech. Africa was missing in the inaugural speech. And one would have expected that because there are really no more battles to fight domestically, there should be no fear of overextension. And therefore, there is a missed opportunity there in the inaugural speech to say maybe let's get back to an Africa agenda. After the inauguration, there is a Ghana moment, the Accra moment. But this comes in a very different kind of iteration. He invites 4 presidents, Malawi, Cape Verde, Senegal, and I'm forgetting the other, Sierra Leone, yes, to the White House. If you read that statement that he presented after he met these 4 presidents, was to reiterate what he had said in Accra, that the African countries that have done well are better governed, and therefore no corruption. So these are models of Africa. And so the quartet quartet of the presidents, they leave the White House a bit embarrassed. And I think Macky Sall from Senegal says, you know, the U.S. has to take Africa seriously because China is there. And I thought that was very instructive for somebody who's just been feted in the White House, making that statement. The other component the second term is a Kenyan conundrum. And Eric has alluded to it. And I think that has been a very good soft landing when it comes to Obama and Kenya. But I think the more interesting issue about Kenya is that Jendai Fraser, who was a former Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, has taken more leadership role on the Kenyan issue than the Obama administration itself. And I'm just pointing it out here because Jendai did her PhD on civil-military relations in Kenya. And so I get the sense that she stood up very clearly, making a lot of anti-ICC statements that the U.S. should not be pushing Kenyatta to go to The Hague because this is bad for Kenya. And so she's essentially out-Obamaing Obama in that kind of sense that I know Kenya better. It's an interesting dynamic. I'm just putting it on the table. Let me summarize with the last moment. And the last moment is when Mo Ibrahim is invited to Washington to get the big Africa Award. And this is just about, I think, 2 weeks ago. And Mo Ibrahim releases a big statement about the African disappointment with the Obama approach to Africa. And I thought I would just read it to capture the points that I've been trying to make. He says, "We are witnessing a gradual and continuous U.S. retreat from Africa. We don't understand that. The U.S. has been a great friend all these years. But as soon as Africa finds itself starting to move up, the U.S. begins to disengage. To be frank, as friends, we must be frank with each other. For this disengagement to happen on the watch of our son, Obama, in the White House, is very strange to us. This is not about aid money. We know it is hard times here with Congress and other issues. We really love you. We want a little love, Mr. Obama. Come and give us a hug now and then." Thank you.
Thank you.